will be at these meetings. I mean, citizens from all these different environmental groups, food groups, anybody that's concerned should be able to go. I mean, representative, not all the people that are represented. Those are comments, but I did have a couple of questions. One was, we're talking a lot today about the TPP, but how do we know, and it's in secret, so how do we know what we're talking about? No one really said how we found out what we can go with. And that would be important to tell people when we go and talk to them, because they're going to have the same question. And the other question is, what are other countries doing? What are the citizens of other countries doing about it? Do they know anything about it? Have they been able to get through some of the secrecy, or what's happening elsewhere? And that comes Global Trade Watch. When Global Trade Watch and Public Citizen came to visit us here in January, they told us how it evolved to the point where we know anything about it. Because a couple of chapters of the 25, I've heard that is 29 chapters of text, were actually leaked. If they weren't leaked, we wouldn't have the knowledge that we have. Okay. And from there, it's been building and building and building. And yes, there are international protests. The 15th round of negotiations was held in Australia, and there were people on the streets outside of the hotel. There are definitely elsewhere. Yes. They know about it elsewhere. Yes, they do.
Can I add to that? There have been protests in Mexico, in Canada, in Singapore, and certain other Pacific nations. It's not just us. There are many people worldwide that are against it.
Okay, yes, sir.
A lot of this information we're talking about is important, but there is a solution. The solution is very basic. You got to step back. All these corporations are CEOs, CFOs, board of governors. There's an owner to each corporation. Congressman is in the front because each corporation has an owner title. All these concerns are concerned about all these trade agreements can be stopped in a matter of days. It's very simple. There's an owner of title. The owner of title never authorized any of this. It doesn't matter which country, which corporation, every country is a corporation. The owner of title never authorized anything. Therefore, everything the corporations are doing falls under RICO and treason. Now, you can verify this simply. Congressman has the ability, he's a congressman, legislator, then get onto the Fed screen, type in the owner, ask for who the owner is of, say, Chase. Chase is something everybody knows. Chase is only 3% traded on the stock exchange at retail. The owner of title is Adnan Safri and Fed ID 8216 or 8217. This would put an end to everything we're dealing with as a nation and a global economy. However, our three branches of government, and the Supreme Court is part of the corruption.
What's the
Our
question?
legal system is the corruption.
What's the question?
The question is not a question, it's an answer. Everything you're concerned about can be resolved. These trade agreements can be squashed. Huh?
Right.
What's that?
This question and answer.
Do you want to solve your problems, or do you want to play a game? I'm not here to play a game. I'm here to let you know how to resolve the problem. You want to keep your family on the ground? You want to continue to destroy this country? Keep going the route you're going. Ask questions. Who is the owner of these corporations? That's it. That's how you can solve your problem and your family.
Thank you.
Yes.
Has any,
Before you, did anyone want to comment on that? Next question.
has any of this agreement that's been going on, these negotiations been going on almost 4 years now, has anything actually been approved by any country?
Yes.
Yes, I mean,
The answer is no. No, the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Investment and Trade Partnership are still under negotiation. They have not been concluded in any form that's been presented to any legislature yet.
Yes, sir.
Charlie Ferguson, I like to address this with Congressman Grayson. As voters who feel increasingly disenfranchised, what can we do
have to try to make this a litmus test. I mean, one of the fundamental problems that I see right now is that our side has not put forth a positive agenda. And nature affords the vacuum, so is the media. The result of that is that we end up bogged down with endless, circular, utterly inconsequential discussions about things like Benghazi. Just to take a random example. I have security clearance. I've seen all the classified material about Benghazi, including all the emails. There is nothing there. I don't understand why people would spend even 10 minutes talking about it. And yet the media is, at this point, obsessed with it. I'd like to see the same degree of obsession about things that actually matter, like this.
Yes, behind you in the red. You'll get another chance. We don't have a whole lot of hands.
I'm so glad to see you back in office again. I'm from outdoor. I couldn't vote for you in this election, but I'm certainly glad that the other people in your community are feeling sensitive. My congressman is Daniel Webster. And I'd like to formulate a plan maybe to lobby to him and to our senators in the hopes of getting the Tea Party element on board with this, because as you said, I totally agree, why would this be a liberal issue? Why would this not be of interest to those people? Do you think there's any hope in doing that, or would we just be spinning our wheels? Is there a better way, like you asked, to spend our energy to get this done? And I can't believe the Canadian people are allowing this anti-democratic, and the other people in the world, allowing this erosion of their democracy. Either, are they getting, is it a secret there?
Well, first, in the case of Canada, Canada has a conservative government that is so anti-democratic that the Prime Minister actually dismissed Parliament to prevent from voting him out. That actually happened in Canada, of all places, less than 2 years ago. So I don't think that Canada is any longer the model of democracy that people thought it was. With regard to other countries, the situation varies from one to another. As I said before, in most places it's not on people's radar yet because it hasn't been presented for consideration. We can't afford to wait that long. With regard to who to lobby, what to say, I think that the pitch for any Republican audience is what I said, which is that it's an abrogation of our sovereignty. These are the people who whine endlessly about foreign aid. They whine endlessly about the United Nations. They whine endlessly about black helicopters. Here is an actual specific threat, a concrete threat to our sovereignty as a country. And they should be up in arms about this. You want to talk specifically, I don't think you have any hope in speaking to Daniel Webster. Daniel Webster was a corporate shill for 28 years in the Florida legislature. I can say this now, by the way. He was a corporate shill for 28 years in the Florida legislature. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Unless you can find some provision in the Bible against the trans Daniel Webster's going to vote for it. It's that simple. However, with regard to other people here who are local or more or less local, I think that Ted Yoho, who was just elected in Ocala, is a potential vote against this. And I think that conceivably Dennis Ross, who represents Lakeland, is a potential vote against this. I would expect Webster for sure would vote for it, and Michael probably would vote for it. So, I mean, there is an audience for what you're describing, and I think we have to pick our audience and go after them.
Corinne Brown?
Oh, I think Corinne would vote against this, no
Yes.
question.
Congressman, just a question. Webster has a huge farm area where he is representing, I don't know, thousands and thousands of farm workers who would actually be really injured by this. Why would he be in favor of it?
That's not his constituency. Webster's constituency is John Boehner, and John Boehner's constituency are multinational corporations who want this desperately and finance all of the right-wing Republican conservative campaigns all around the country, including Webster's. I don't think you can find a single example where Webster's voted against what Boehner wanted. And of course, you can't find a single example of Boehner voting against what multinational corporations want. It's that simple. The farm workers in Westchester are irrelevant.
I'm going to recognize myself to make a comment. Should it be fast-tracked, which I think is the most likely scenario, what it would require to pass, instead of having to have 2/3 of the Senate vote, as most treaties would normally have, correct me if I'm wrong, Congress, instead of 2/3 of the Senate, it would need to get 50% plus one in both the Senate and the House. Typically, these trade deals have been passed by a near unanimity of Republicans and a few Democrats. And I expect that that is the route that is expected for passage of this bill, or this treaty. Before I take the next question, which I'll recognize Tim in just a second, and I see more hands, but please, before you go out, if you haven't already signed our sign-in sheet, please sign that. We also have postcards to go to your particular congressman and the 2 state senators from CWA and Sierra Club on the table there. There's 3 postcards on each, 8.5 by 11. You need to fill out all 3, leave the 3 on the table, and take the little information card. Tim, you're next.
Hey, about a month ago, on April 15th, Congress, they repealed the Stop Trading on Professional Knowledge Act. I was wondering, what could you tell us about that? How could it be related to the what we're talking about? And yeah, was there any way that, how can we hold our congressmen and officials accountable with the Stock Act repeal? You know, how should we be looking at them? Where should we be looking to making sure that there's no corruption and insider profited from? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, the Stock Act was not repealed. I still have to file forms every month under the Stock Act, and I've done so. That's not true.
Okay. Well, I've read that over 20,000 people are no longer under that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, what you're referring to is the fact that it doesn't apply to executive branch officials because a court issued a ruling saying that it was unconstitutional to apply to executive branch officials. So there was action in this area, but it was not a repeal. It still applies to every member of Congress, and it still applies to certain other people. But here's what happened. The Stock Act was supposed to go into effect on April 15th for, as you said, roughly 20,000 executive branch officials who at that point would have been required, as I am required, every month to disclose whatever investment decisions they may make during the course of that 30-day period. The executive branch officials complained that, first of all, it was a violation of their privacy rights under the Constitution, which you can either accept or not accept. I think it's pretty hard, that's just my opinion. And secondly, that it was dangerous to do this, that there was a security issue involved, because this is the argument they made to the court. There's a security issue involved because they would be subject to blackmail and other kinds of interference if foreign agents could see what investments these people in the executive branch were making. Okay? Now, again, I will not defend those arguments at all, but the fact is that the court accepted those arguments, and the court was about to say the whole thing was unconstitutional. Instead, Congress passed a law excluding the executive branch officials who would have to apply, while leaving and applying to everyone else, including me. So that, I mean, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a digression here. It's a long explanation, but that's the full answer to the question, and it still applies to members of Congress in total. You're welcome.
But to add on here, I think we'll hold people accountable, but that's how you.
Yeah, and by organizing, as several of our speakers mentioned, we need to get organized, tell our friends, tell our brothers and sisters in our unions and our organizations. Congressman Grayson do a great job, but he's got our back. We've got to have his back too. Yes, ma'am.
Congressman, I was delighted to hear you this past week on the Tom Harkin show
Yeah.
about this issue. I would encourage everybody to seek out progressive radio. You will hear issues like this where you will hear, don't they sell Randy Rose, Tom Harkin,
Michael Boy, Ed Schultz, and so on and so forth, they're on the internet. I want to know two things. Are you working with real super excellent congressional representatives and senators, such yourself, Bernie Sanders, and Ron Wyden, and others, to maybe get this out in the public? And my other question is not this issue, but something that would be of interest to everybody here, and that is the repeal of the mandatory 40-hour week. As a registered nurse, I'm mortified at what might happen. So could you talk about this? Thank you.
All right. First, if any of you have DirecTV or Dish Network, then you can get what's called Free Speech TV, which is a compilation of many of these radio shows plus other programming like progressive documentaries. You have to find it. It's in channel 1,827 or something like that. You really have to dig for it, but it is there on both Dish and DirecTV. It's Free Speech TV. With regard to how we work together, that's a work in progress. We're trying to get better organized in that regard. I've been able to get 40 other members of Congress in the House to sign a letter to the President saying that we vote against any and every Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefit.
Dish Network, it's 9410, and there's another progressive.
9410?
Yeah, and there's another progressive one at 9415, if you have Dish.
Now, if I could just finish this response to your last point, and I thank you all for being patient about this, but I just want to make sure that no question is left unanswered. It is in fact true